Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Sonic Multiverse. This video is a bit different than usual. This is a compilation video, compiling the different parts of one of my oldest what-ifs, what if Shadow was created with Seedrian DNA. This will allow you to see the entire story of Seedrian Shadow from start to finish. I do have to warn you, my narration style was a lot, slower back then, but for those dedicated, there will be a small epilogue chapter at the very end. Just a little way to wrap up the story and give respects to those dedicated enough to watch to the end. Or for those who just skip to the end, but I don't really care. I get the view either way, so do whatever you want. Anyway, enjoy the video. Professor Gerald Robotnik was a brilliant man, and the lead scientist to the Guardians Unit of Nations, otherwise known as GUN. The man was given an impossible task: to create an immortal ultimate life form for their organization. GUN's officials believed that he would go along with it. Gerald had been making them weapons for years after all. But Gerald's reasons for helping them was far more selfless than it would first seem. He didn't care about the money or his reputation. He wanted to save his granddaughter, Maria. Maria was dying of a deadly disease. Science currently could not find a cure, but Gerald believed if he could create a being that couldn't be infected by any disease and could live forever, he could potentially reverse engineer that to make a cure for her. So, seeing this as the perfect opportunity to have a nearly unlimited amount of resources, Gerald agreed to make their weapon. His first attempt, the Bio-Lizard, was seen as a failure to GUN. Its scales may have been impenetrable, but its large size made it nearly impossible to move. On top of that, the monster often formed cancerous spores on its back, which would make easy weak spots. And worst of all for Gerald, the DNA simply couldn't work with human tissue. He was back at square one. Gerald began to research into the Chaos Emeralds, believing that they could help him create the ultimate life form. His first stop was Angel Island, a strange floating landmass that appeared on Earth every few months. It also was allegedly once home to alien creatures. To many, these were simply legends, but to Gerald, it was scientific fact. He knew that a group known as the Knuckles clan once called this island home. As the good professor was looking through the ancient writings of these echidnas, he came across a mural depicting a large creature fighting a golden alien harnessing the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Gerald was inspired by this image and would loosely base his ultimate life form on this very hedgehog. After a few months, Gerald Robotnik completed his research on Angel Island and headed back to his lab on the Ark, a space colony orbiting around the planet Earth. He had learned a lot from Angel Island and was ready to apply it to his project. All he needed was a DNA sample to base it upon. But Gerald wasn't simply content on just waiting for a donor to come to him. He didn't know how long Maria had left, so Gerald ventured off into the unknown galaxy, searching for a potential and willing blood donor. As Gerald left Earth's atmosphere, a black comet rocketed by him, but Gerald took no note of it. He was too determined to find a cure for Maria, whatever it took. Eventually, Professor Gerald came across a planet covered in vegetation, but teeming with technology. The inhabitants of this planet seemed to have a similarity to dinosaurs, but were completely made of plant matter. Gerald became close friends with one of them. Its name was Lucas, and he was more than happy to help Gerald with his project, in hope that perhaps this could bring peace to the galaxy. So together, Gerald and Lucas returned to the planet Earth. Together, combining their technology and research, they created the ultimate life form, Shadow, the Seedrian. Following Lucas's return to his home planet, GUN learned of what Gerald had done. Not only did GUN not approve of Gerald making first contact with aliens, opening them up to any invasion coming forward, they feared what he had created. Not only was Shadow immortal, indestructible, and had a series of chaos abilities, but he had a number of potentially dangerous powers due to his Seedrian DNA that not even Gerald knew the extent of. So GUN sent a death squad up to the Ark to arrest or kill anyone that knew of Shadow's existence and to lock away the ultimate life form. Several scientists, including Gerald Robotnik himself, was arrested, but Maria was killed as she tried to save Shadow. Shadow was brought back to GUN's base on Prison Island and left on suspended animation, intended never to be released. Sadly for GUN, Shadow would be released 50 years later by Dr. Ivo Robotnik, grandson of Gerald Robotnik, better known as Dr. Eggman. Seemingly in appreciation for his freedom, Shadow pledged his allegiance to Eggman, but truly, he was trying to carry out a revenge plot formed by Professor Gerald to avenge the death of Maria. Shadow told Eggman to meet him on the Space Colony Ark with a Chaos Emerald. After giving Eggman the order, Shadow left the base to find his own Chaos Emerald. As the leafy green alien ran across the rooftops, he heard of a Chaos Emerald being locked away in a high-security vault. As evening loomed over Station Square, Shadow broke into the vault and stole the Chaos Emerald. Like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me. Shadow quickly made his escape, running through the Radical Highway and grinding across the bridges. Station Square police forces tried to catch up with him, but it was no use. Shadow was simply too fast and too powerful. Based on his spiky figure, a lot of people thought this was Sonic, but at a second glance, they quickly realized that this was a new threat. Perhaps if Shadow had a darker fur tone that could easily be mistaken for a dark blue during the low visibility of the midnight hour, or a figure more closely attuned to Supersonic, the media could be forgiven for believing that this was the blue hero, but it was clear to anyone that this was not Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, bright green fur, leafy exterior, horns. Yeah. No one's believing this is Sonic. During his escape, Shadow was encountered by a gigantic GUN robot called the Bigfoot. Although the machine put up a good fight, Shadow made quick work of it, destroying it with a series of homing attacks. Standing upon the newly destroyed machine, Shadow stared at the Chaos Emerald in his palm. As he stared into its power, he felt a memory, one that had faded over the years of isolation. It was during Maria's final moments. In the few glances he got, he saw Maria begging him to do something about the people of Earth. "Maria, I don't remember what I promised you, but for the people of this planet, I promise you revenge. And it'll all start with this, a jewel containing the ultimate power." Suddenly, Shadow heard a loud booming noise in the distance, as if something was running towards him. It was Sonic the Hedgehog. All the chaos had gotten his attention. "Hey, what do you think you're doing with that emerald?" Shadow simply turned, staring at the blue hedgehog. "Say something, you green monster!" Shadow quickly raised his emerald, declaring, "Chaos Control!" In an instant, the Seedrian was gone. Sonic looked around before spotting Shadow on top of a rooftop. "My name is Shadow. I am the world's ultimate life form. There's no time to play games. Farewell." Sonic quickly took off, trying to catch the green hedgehog, even scaling the building, but just before he could make contact, Shadow disappeared once again. Shadow transported onto the Ark. Not long after, Eggman would appear on the Ark as well, after failing to capture the Master Emerald. Shadow introduced the Doctor to the Eclipse Cannon, a weapon designed by Gerald Robotnik decades ago that harnessed the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Shadow explained that when all 7 Chaos Emeralds were added to the machine, they would have the power to destroy a planet, and all the world's governments would be at their mercy. Eggman could finally rule the planet. All they needed were the other 5 remaining emeralds. Unfortunately, they had no idea where the emeralds were. That was when a certain Batgirl arrived. As Rouge the Bat descended, she explained that she was a master jewel thief and could easily find the Chaos Emeralds. She even unveiled a 3rd Chaos Emerald just to prove her point. She offered to help Shadow and Dr. Eggman in their plan in exchange for the Chaos Emeralds once everything was finished. They all agreed. The trio headed towards Prison Island, the place where Rouge said that 3 Chaos Emeralds were being held. Eggman explained the plan. He would distract the military with his Eggmobile, Rouge would steal the emeralds, and Shadow would plant a series of explosives across the island so that GUN couldn't follow them. The terrible trio spread out, each executing their part of the plan. Since in this timeline Sonic wasn't arrested, Amy and Tails would have no reason to be on Prison Island, so Eggman wasn't interrupted, but there still was a large amount of explosives getting Sonic's attention from across the bay. After a quick dash across the water, Sonic appeared and was ready to fight Eggman. Despite Eggman's best efforts, as always, Sonic beat him relatively easily. But Eggman purposely let it slip that there was a series of explosives across the island. This was to distract Sonic, and even if he could get to all the bombs in time, Eggman would be long gone before Sonic got back. Meanwhile, Rouge had broken into the main vault and had stolen the 3 Chaos Emeralds kept there. But as she attempted to make her escape, the security system activated, locking her inside the vault with no way out. With no way out, Rouge used her communicator to contact Shadow and let him know of the predicament. Although at first Shadow considered leaving her, when he suddenly had another flash of memory. Shadow began to subconsciously compare Rouge dying alone in a fiery inferno on Prison Island to what happened to Maria all those years ago. But he convinced himself that he would only save her to rescue the Chaos Emeralds. As the leafy hedgehog raced through the green forests of Prison Island, he suddenly saw a blue blur race by him. The 2 speedsters grounded to a halt. "Hey, is that blue hedgehog again of all places?" "Ha! Found you, monster!" "Monster? These humans are the monsters. They care little for life. They only crave destruction. One by one, they'll all fall before me. Just like you, hedgehog. I'll make you eat those words." The confrontation soon turned into a fistfight, which turned into a series of homing attacks as each hedgehog tried to knock the other back. To Shadow's surprise, the blue hedgehog was able to match him move for move, so Shadow decided to tap into his chaos powers. As his arm began to glow a menacing orange, Shadow declared, "Chaos Thorn!" 3 energy-based tendrils erupted from Shadow's arm. Each of them could have easily skewered Sonic. Luckily for the blue hedgehog, he barely dodged them. Using his speed, Sonic quickly ran up, clocking Shadow right across the face. Although this hurt Shadow greatly, he smirked. "Ha! Perhaps you're not as pathetic as I thought." Suddenly, the forest around them began to shudder. "Now, witness the might of my power!" Shadow's arms began to illuminate with chaos energy as his rocket boots allowed him to ascend into the air. Sonic was about to chase him when suddenly he realized he couldn't move his feet. Sonic looked down at his sneakers. He saw the grass had begun to wrap around them, effectively grounding him. Suddenly, a vine whipped out from the forest, grabbing Sonic's left arm, and another one grabbing his right. Sonic didn't understand what was going on, but knew Shadow had to be behind this. Shadow was using his chaos powers in sync with his Seedrian DNA to manipulate the plant life around him. Shadow grabbed one of the vines, pulling Sonic slowly towards him, preparing Chaos Thorn to stab Sonic, putting him down once and for all. Sayonara. But before Shadow could deliver the finishing blow, he got a transmission on his comm unit.
Shadow, what are you doing? The island's about to blow up. Get out of there!
Shadow, remembering that Rouge and the Chaos Emeralds were still locked in the vault, quickly abandoned the fight. He manipulated the force around him to make the journey as short as possible. Rouge was still there in the vault, waiting for the inevitable. She believed that Eggman and Shadow had left her for dead, when suddenly the door came crashing down. Shadow was there. Shadow raced to the other side of the room, and as he could hear the explosions erupting outside, he tapped into the energy of the 3 Chaos Emeralds present and teleported them, himself, and Rouge to safety aboard the Ark. Following Team Eggman's assault on Prison Island, Shadow was thinking of Maria. He was thinking back to old conversations they would have, wondering if Maria would want him to do this, if she would want him to take revenge on humanity. Before the ultimate life form could come to his conclusion, Rouge entered the room. That was unexpected, Shadow. So unlike you, to come and save me. Never would have taken you as a compassionate kind of guy. Shadow scoffed. I only came to save the Chaos Emeralds. Whatever you say. Before they could continue their conversation, Eggman entered the room. He said that it was time for the demonstration. A sinister grin came across Shadow's face. Let's give him a show, Doctor. Millions of screens across the world suddenly flashed with Eggman's face. The Doctor had come to make an announcement.
People of Earth, I am Dr. Ivo Robotnik, the greatest scientific genius in the world, and soon to be the world's greatest ruler. Ho ho ho, look to the skies and see the glorious beginning of the Eggman Empire.
With a single blast from the Eclipse cannon, they obliterated half the moon to show the governments what kind of power they were working with.
To the world leaders, the choice is simple. Join my empire, or die. You have 24 hours to make your decision. Ho ho ho. Oh ho 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 ho!
With that, the transmission abruptly and unceremoniously ended, leaving nothing on the screen but a timer telling the government how long they have to contact him. Worldwide panic broke out. Everyone was fearing for their lives, so the president of the United Federation and the leader of GUN, Abraham Towers, were considering what they should do. The president spoke up. Commander Towers, do we have enough troops to send an assault to Space Colony Ark?
Negative, sir, responded the commander. And even if we did, you saw what Eggman did to our forces. We simply can't keep up with his technology.
I see. Well, I guess we're given no other choice. We have to call them. Mr. President, with all due respect, I don't think it's a good idea to entrust the safety of the planet to a bunch of rodents. Trust me, Towers, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't even consider asking for the help of vigilantes. But right now, we have very little resources and very little time, and we both saw that security footage of Sonic defeating Eggman. He's our best bet of stopping him right now. I also remember Prison Island exploding with him on it. Come on, Abraham. We know if anyone could outrun that blast, it's Sonic. Well, true, Mr. President, but I still don't think we should rely on these rodents to save the world. Those rodents have proven time and time again that they can stand up to Dr. Eggman. Right now, they're our best hope. So it's quite simple. As an order from your Commander-in-Chief, go find Sonic and his friends. This is a matter of national security.
Understood, sir.
So with that, the commander left the room and gave the order to GUN to find Sonic the Hedgehog and his closest allies and recruit them to take down Dr. Eggman. After recruiting Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, the group of freedom fighters began devising a plan to take down Eggman. Eventually, they agreed on a direct assault to Space Colony Ark in a gun aircraft. Once up there, Sonic would use a fake Chaos Emerald, provided by Tails, to disrupt the cannon, causing it to self-destruct once fired. The rest of the heroes would play their part to distract Eggman and Shadow so that Sonic could complete his objective. The heroes were initially confused why Rouge wasn't on that list, but the president explained that she was his double agent. He had already informed Rouge on their attack strategy and told them that she would be there to help them aboard the Space Colony Ark if need be. Knuckles hated the idea of working with that Master Emerald thief again, but the rest of the heroes were happy to have another ally. On the behalf of the United Federation, I can't thank you enough for agreeing to help our country. This could easily be our final hour, the president said grimly while looking down. Sonic extended his arm. The president looked up. Don't worry, Mr. Prez, we got this. The president accepted the gesture, although he was still worried about the situation. The heroes began to board the gun airship. Sonic sprinted aboard, Amy and Knuckles casually walked on, and Tails arrived in the Cyclone. Sonic looked a little confused. Tails, what's with the mech? Well, Sonic, it pays to come prepared. We don't know what's up there. I know what's up there, said a voice from across the room. It was Commander Tower. It's home to freaks, monsters, and nightmares that still haunt me to this very day. So, you've been to the Ark, Mr. Tower? Let's say we have some history. Well then get on the damn ship, Knuckles blurted out. The sooner we get up there, the sooner I can get the Master Emerald pieces back. Sonic butted in. Hey, cool it, Knux. He's trying to help us. Don't tell me to cool it, Sonic. As Sonic and Knuckles began to bicker, Amy and Tails tried to break up the fight. While everyone was talking over themselves, the commander began to mutter to himself. Shadow, this time you're mine. Before long, everything was set up, and the heroes rocketed into space. As they got closer, Tails took note of the fact that there were very little defenses protecting the Ark. They must be diverting a lot of the power to the Eclipse Cannon. Though we don't have time to lose. Come on, let's go. The shuttle had barely touched the ground when Sonic leaped out of it and began running towards the central core of the Ark. Tower looked at the heroes. Okay, we know our part. We need to make as much noise as possible to get Eggman's attention. Huh, you call that a plan? I could have come up with a better one. I gave you a direct order, Echidna. Follow it. Knuckles and the commander stared at each other intensely, before finally, just make sure the Batgirl returns my emerald when I'm done, Knuckles stated matter-of-factly. Very well, you'll have your precious gemstone when we're done. Now move out. Hey, I thought you were coming with us, Amy questioned. Right, change of plan. I have direct orders from the president. I have my own mission. You three, go wreak havoc. Get Eggman's attention. The three heroes looked confused, but still obeyed the order. As the heroes moved out, the gun commander looked at his weapon. He cocked the pistol before stating, Shadow, for the people of the Ark, I promise you revenge. Aboard the Space Colony Ark, Shadow the Seedrian was reminiscing about Maria, and thinking about how he would soon have his vengeance on humanity. Soon, Maria. Soon. Those humans will pay for what they did to you. Shadow's train of thought was suddenly interrupted by a buzzing from his communicator. The green hedgehog quickly picked it up. Dr. Eggman, what's wrong?
Shadow, a silent alarm has just been triggered in the main loading bay. It seems we have some uninvited visitors.
Scanners are also tracing an energy signature moving at high speed, matching that of the Chaos Emeralds.
At that moment, Eggman figured out what was going on.
Those fools. They think they can fool us with that fake emerald, do they? I'll take care of this, Shadow. You just protect the Eclipse Cannon.
Understood. Shadow hung up the communicator and was about to head towards the core. when suddenly the muffled sound of a gunshot could be heard. The bullet went right through Shadow's leg, causing immense pain, forcing him onto his knees. The green hedgehog looked back to see his mystery assailant. It was Gun Commander Towers.
It's been a long time, Shadow.
Shadow gritted his teeth, still holding his leg.
Who are you? And how do you know my name?
You don't recognize me? I'm hurt. Shadow glared at the opponent and looked into his eyes. One of them blue, the other one a golden yellow. He'd seen this man before, a long time ago.
You're Abraham, Maria's friend aboard the Ark. Don't you dare say her name, monster.
Shadow growled at the remark.
Me, monster? You're the one wearing the emblem of those who killed Maria.
Abraham looked at the gun logo on his jacket.
Gun are here to protect the world from people like you. If you didn't exist, Maria would still be alive today.
As the commander continued to monologue, Shadow slowly began to raise one of his arms, with chaos energy burning inside it.
Justice will be served, Shadow.
Abraham quickly pulled the trigger, but during the split second before the bullet could hit him, Shadow quickly moved out of the way. Abraham was startled, and he looked down at Shadow's leg. The bullet hole that had just been there seconds ago had healed somehow, as if vines had wrapped around it. There was no sign that there was any injury there to begin with. Seeing the commander's temporary sign of confusion, Shadow raised his hand. The green hedgehog quickly released the chaos energy he had been building up.
Chaos Thorn!
The chaos energy erupted out into 3 tendrils. One of the tendrils slashed at the commander's leg. The other one knocked the gun out of his hand, and the final tendril did the most damage. The tendril slashed across Abraham's face, going from his forehead down to his lower left cheek, barely missing his left eye. Shadow stepped towards the commander, who was still screaming in pain.
I want you to know, Commander, this is nothing personal, but I will avenge Maria, no matter what it takes.
Shadow raised his arm.
Chaos!
But just before Shadow could finish his attack, a bomb dropped at his feet with a heart-shaped insignia on it. The ultimate lifeform looked down at the device, expecting it to go off. As he was distracted, a figure dropped behind Shadow and knocked him aside with a single roundhouse kick. It was Rouge the Bat. Sorry, handsome, but I can't let you do that.
Agent Rouge, are you insane? That bomb could have killed me.
Relax, sweetie. It was a dud. She looked back across the arena to see Shadow getting back up.
So, Rouge, this was your plan all along? Or is this a direct order from the president?
Sorry, Shadow. Can't have you blowing up the world. Plus, I was promised 7 lovely emeralds for my work. Shadow glared at the Batgirl.
Get out of my way, Rouge.
The two locked eyes for what felt like an eternity. Quickly, Shadow teleported behind Rouge and tried doing a quick sweep attack. Rouge saw this coming and quickly leaped out of the way, kicking him back. Using the momentum of the kick, she flew into the air and threw several flashbangs at Shadow. With the ultimate lifeform temporarily blinded, Rouge tried to grab Shadow, restraining him.
Shadow, stand down. Don't make me hurt you, Rouge.
This is pointless. You're not even the real Shadow. Shadow's eyes widened, and in a blink of an eye, he teleported out of Rouge's grip. Rouge was expecting another attack, but Shadow just stood in front of her, glaring.
What are you talking about, Rouge?
I've been looking into this ultimate lifeform project, and the pictures don't depict anything that looks like you. The creature was codenamed the Bio-Lizard, and if that's the ultimate lifeform, then Who is standing in front of me? Shadow stood silent. I don't have time for this. He began to walk away. Suddenly, an explosion was heard from outside the colony. The commander and Rouge were in confusion, but Shadow knew exactly what that was. Guess he was just a normal hedgehog after all. Unbeknownst to Shadow, the gun commander began to pick up his weapon. Well then, Shadow, tell Sonic I said hello. Abraham pulled the trigger, but just before the bullet could hit Shadow, he warped away, seeing no more need to fight. He had already won. Shadow warped to the lower sections of the space colony arc, waiting for when the Eclipse cannon would fire. When, to his surprise, he saw a blue hedgehog standing mere yards ahead of him. You never cease to surprise me, Blue Hedgehog. I thought the capsule you were in exploded in space. You know, what can I say? I die hard. You know, you saved me. Shadow glanced at Sonic's emerald. But there's no way you'd be able to use chaos control with an emerald that's fake. Sonic gave a smirk. So there's more to you than just looking like me. What are you, anyway? What you see is what you get. Just a guy that loves adventure. I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. I see. Well, I can't let you live. Your adventuring days are coming to an end. Unlike the first time Sonic and Shadow fought in this What If, the advantage was in Sonic's corner. For reference, unlike in the main game series where Shadow is almost as fast as Sonic and can casually flip over a bus with his bare hands, this Shadow's strength is more akin to, say, the Avatar from Sonic Forces. His powers really lie in regenerative and controlled plant life, which aboard a space colony with clearly no plants, that ability ain't gonna come in handy. Shadow was still no pushover and was going to use all of his chaos abilities to try and stop Sonic before he could get to the core, but ultimately this battle was only going to end one way. Within a mere minute, the battle was done. Although it was strenuous, Sonic still came out the victor. Shadow raised his head just in time to see Sonic run off to center the core. As Sonic ran far out of view, Shadow slowly got back onto his feet. Despite being beaten, he felt a strange sense of respect for Sonic. A normal hedgehog being able to stop the ultimate life form. At the same time, Eggman was being defeated by the combined assault of Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, who were trying to avenge their supposedly fallen friend. That's when they got a transmission from Sonic, confirming that he was alive and that he had stopped the Space Colony Arc's cannon from firing. Sadly, this touching moment between the four of them was the perfect chance for Eggman to slip away with the real Chaos Emerald. The Mad Doctor hurried to the core and quickly tried to reactivate the Space Colony Arc's laser cannon. That's when a videotape started playing. It was of the late Gerald Robotnik, explaining how he would take vengeance on humanity. Similar to the original timeline, the heroes and villains teamed up to try and stop the Space Colony Arc from colliding with the Earth. Although in this timeline, Amy was helping them as well. Amy took out a couple artificial chaos to help Tails get to his destination. But high above, in the very room he was ejected from 50 years ago, Shadow was looking down at the Earth as the space colony got closer and closer to the planet. That's when a figure walked up behind him. Shadow spoke up. "Are you here to kill me, Commander? Take your best shot. It doesn't matter anymore." "It still matters to me. If you didn't exist, maybe she would have had a chance. A chance for what? To be happy." A chance to be happy. Those words raced through Shadow's mind. He felt a shearing amount of deja vu, as if he had heard that statement before, but couldn't quite place it. Then it all hit him, what Maria's true dying wish was. You're right, Commander. I am. Maria would want me to give them a chance to be happy, and I must keep my promise to her, and to you. Before the commander could question Shadow, he warped away to help the heroes stop the space colony arc. From this point on, the events of this story end nearly identical to how they ended up in Sonic Adventure 2. Shadow fights the Bio-Lizard to give Sonic and Knuckles a little more time, and eventually takes on his own super form to help Super Sonic defeat the final hazard. Although, this version of Super Shadow is a far cry from what you would expect. Instead of sporting a traditional creamy yellow and red stripes, this design, unknowing to Shadow, references his alien origin with dark purple and dark indigo stripes. Despite his appearance not matching it, he's nearly as powerful as the game's Super Shadow, and after a few hits from him and Super Sonic, the Bio-Lizard was destroyed. But they still had the space colony to deal with, as it was still drifting towards the planet. Both hedgehogs knew what they had to do. They had to stop the space colony, no matter what it took. After giving a knowing nod to one another, their hearts and minds united as one, as they raised their hands filled with chaos energy and pronunciated, "Chaos Control!" The space colony was launched back into orbit. But such a move had a deadly cost. Although Supersonic was launched back towards the colony, Shadow was launched down at the Earth. Since he had collected less rings during the battle than Sonic did, his super form didn't last long, and quickly depleted as he was pulled towards the Earth's atmosphere. His leafy fur began to burn up on re-entry. His wooden limbs began to snap apart like twigs before ripping off of him. And even one of his horns lit on fire. But despite everything, Shadow smiled. "Maria, this is what you wanted, right? This is the promise I made to you." Shadow, still smiling, closed his eyes and pictured him and Maria walking together on a warm beach as his body burnt up on re-entry. Very little had survived re-entry. The only things of Shadow that remained was his 4 inhibitor rings and a single golden seed, which launched itself deep into the Earth's crust. Out of the seed sprouted a single green flower and the possibility of redemption for Shadow the Seedrian. Aboard the Space Colony Ark, Commander Tower looked down on the world, thinking of Shadow, the hedgehog he had hated for so many years. But that very hedgehog had sacrificed his life to protect the commander and all those who deemed the Earth their home. The commander shook his head slowly in confusion. Could he have really been created by that evil professor to carry out his revenge on the planet? Sonic noticed this. The blue hedgehog gave the commander a comforting smile. Shadow was who he was, a brave and noble hedgehog who gave his life to protect that planet. Let's remember him for that. Abraham smiled. Maybe you're right. He looked down at the planet once more, saluting his fallen soldier. Rest in peace, Shadow. Say hi to Maria for me. And with that, one by one, the heroes and Dr. Eggman disperse back to the planet they shared. A few days later, the gun commander was typing away on his laptop. Gerald may have created you for awful purposes, Shadow, but I do believe the world could use an ultimate life form. Of sorts, anyway. The commander opened up a new file, codename Project Shadow Android. You can rest easy now, Shadow. They'll protect the planet in your honor. And this is where the story of Shadow the Seedrian comes to an end. What did you think of the saga? Did you enjoy it? And what ifs would you like to see? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'm ComicFan13, and I hope you have a good day.